Hey all, good evening, everybody here. So, if you're listening to this podcast, I appreciate you tuning in for our video podcast here. This is Paul from Drums and Rums, and where the backbeats meets the spirits. I connected with our guest on a Facebook, a common Facebook group. Him and I are both on, and so we were sharing some information. And again, I don't know how the I remember correctly if it has stemmed it, and we're posting about each other's podcasts, and it was one of those. Podcasters that drum, and it's like, oh, it's kind of, then we went down the rabbit hole. It's like, it's amazing I shouldn't be surprised that, yes, podcasters do drum and vice versa. But yeah, so let me go ahead and introduce on our guest onto the podcast here, drummer and co-host of the Dads Unfiltered podcast, Pete McLaughlin. How you doing, Pete? How you doing? Good evening.
I am doing all right, sir. I am doing all right. I
Excellent.
Up here in New England, we got some snow, a little rain, good times.
Excellent. Yeah, we did get a little bit of that weather here in South Florida last weekend. Of
You
all
got
week,
snow?
no, not snow, but we did
Oh, I
get
was
the
gonna
cold. Well,
say,
I mean,
holy
yeah.
shit.
Well, there is always snow in Miami, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah. Talking to the kind that falls from the sky and melts.
Yeah, right. So it melts in your mouth and right in your nose. Um,
Right.
so yeah, there is the podcast. We were chatting there, and uh, like I said, I think it was it the Buzzsprout Facebook group. I think that's how we
I think so. Yeah,
yeah.
it was someone had made a post about is anybody looking for guests?
Mhm.
And I posted something, you had posted something, and I responded, I believe to you.
Yeah. It's an interesting, have you ever on your show, gotten any guests in that kinda way through, posting?
We actually just had, and our most recent episode went live today with the guy from Debt Free Dad. Wait, am I saying that right? Yeah, I think it's Debt
I
Free
think
Dad.
yeah.
Brad Nelson is the guy's name. He's a fantastic guy, and it was interesting listening to how he's found that finances can be tied to your emotions, and he gave some pointers for dads and families on how to get past that whole holiday bump, where we all overspend
Mhm.
because that equals love.
That's right. If you can't buy love and happiness, just buy whatever people want, right? Money as they
That's
say,
right.
money, buys love, or I don't know.
Yeah,
Can't buy me love, right? There's a Beatles song, right?
I think so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go. So, alright. So, I know if you're watching on the YouTube, I've got a major, glitching going on my camera. So there we go. I'm not sure, but anyway, in the audio podcast, you're not missing much. And again, I just went and froze there. So let's see if I can just fix this real second here. But yeah, we're just going through, and yeah, let me first introduce. Let me go ahead and back and introduce. We'll back up here a little bit and give a little introduction here. So, like I said, this podcast is being taped and live streamed today, January 17th, and the audio podcast will be released on January 31st. So, if you're viewing this today, thank you for joining us. And if you're listening on Apple, Spotify, Pandora, and in other podcast apps, don't forget to watch the podcast in video format on our YouTube channel. Quick housekeeping: if you're hanging out in the chat here, appreciate it hanging out with us here. We'll take some questions, about like at the half an hour mark or so, and then towards the end for Pete or myself. And if you anything you want to learn, you want to learn about the stuff we're going to talk about here tonight, and just jump right in and just hang out with us. And again, it's a Tuesday night, so grab your tacos, and it's Taco Tuesday here. I know we're taping it. I know you're supposed to. Anybody ever tell you about not uh, dating your podcast? I guess with they call it evergreen content, where you're not supposed to make reference to any type of date or time or reference, so people will always can listen it forever and ever.
Yeah, actually, I just break the whole fourth wall with that, and I've openly been like, yeah, we're recording, like it was New Year's Eve. We recorded the Friday before, and then we posted it the Tuesday later, the Tuesday after.
Hmm.
So it was like it was bonkers because we're talking about it pre, and then by the time that the episode aired, everything had already happened.
Right.
So I guess there's a delay, but being being two dads, me and my buddy, my co-host Chris O'Neill, um, we are on two separate coasts. So as far as scheduling, a lot with him, I'm flexible. He's usually a pain in the ass about that sort of stuff. But I love him anyway, you know.
Right. Yeah, and I listened to the podcast there, and you guys have been, yeah, it's a little. Let's get a little bit of background here about. Let's start maybe with the first of the podcast, and then we'll get into some drumming, and then some dad talk, and but yeah, you guys have been together for, or not together, but you've been friends for like I think you mentioned in one of the episodes like nearly 30, 40 years, right?
Yeah, it's been quite some time. And the weird thing that brought us together was a church youth group,
Hmm.
uh, called New Directions. But if you said it fast enough, it sounded like New Directions.
Is it
Uh,
is this the the boy band you guys were in when you were younger?
yeah, yeah, the Catholic boy band. No, we it started there. I actually played drums. Chris has always had a flair for the arts and stuff. He's always been that kind of guy that brings out the acoustic guitar at like a fucking campfire to
Uh,
serenade the ladies. He's
oh
that
that
kind of guy.
oh, so he's getting all
Uh
the chicks then.
yeah, he does all like he's always been like the lead man with that sort of stuff. Um but what brought us together was the guy, the leader of the group, the adult, asked if anybody played instruments. And I happen to have played the drums. Chris played the guitar. Another friend of ours, Derek, played the bass. And we ended up covering Wonderwall and Breakfast at Tiffany's for this youth group. Um, as
Yeah.
fun as that was,
Yeah, that's always, sorry about that. I know, like, the camera's,
that's all right. I was wondering if you were still there.
alien abduction here got me. So, yeah, that's always, yeah, growing up, it's interesting how we meet people and hopefully at some point, and as I know you guys talk a lot about becoming adults and becoming fathers and, these kinds of things that you look back, and I think it was on, I think maybe the episode today. Wow, this thing is really glitching hard. Um it's one of those, when did we get thrusted into adulthood and never got trained? Nobody ever gets trained and taught anything, right? It's like when you have kids, nobody teaches you what to do. You could take maybe all the books and maybe health development classes in high school, but it's never what it always seems like it is, right?
Yeah, dude. And it's weird. It's like as you get older, like when you notice like those hidden jokes in like the kid movies that
Yeah.
like kind of help the parents get through it, you're starting to notice some of that stuff more now as you age. Like I was telling Chris I was watching Johnny Dangerously
Oh my
a
god,
couple of
that's funny.
yeah, I fucking love that movie. But there was a joke that Ma Kelly says to Mary Lou Henner. No, not is it Mary Lou Henner?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
it's
that.
Mary
Yeah,
Lou
I think
Henner.
that's, yeah.
And she goes, I I've known you for a while now, and I love you like a daughter, and I just want you to know I go both ways. And then she walks away. And like I never thought of it once when I was younger about it, but then I heard it the other day and I was like, holy shit.
All that,
Like
yeah.
that is fucking hilarious. But
Well, it isn't like a Disney movie where they drop some of those hints that go over the kids' heads and all that. I mean, fair enough. I do agree because I watched that movie back and because I got in a lot of trouble for the guy Michael Keaton was always warring with was, or one of the guys was, you know
Roman
he,
Maroney.
he kept saying Fargan Wars, and it was like
Yep. Knock down that wall, knock down that Fargan wall. Yeah, oh man, I fucking love
uh,
that movie.
no, you Fargan love the movie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. I it definitely 80s movies is definitely my sweet spot for a lot of things.
Mm.
I do like music a lot. That those are the two things that I've kind of always been close with my father, I guess. Were was cinema and good music,
Mm.
really. So he took me to my first movies like E.T. in the theater, Indiana Jones, well Raiders, I
Mm.
should say. All of that stuff, and then he took me to see like the Grateful Dead, the
Oh wow,
Stones. He took me to see Rush,
wow, that's pretty impressive.
and,
Yeah.
and it was even like a lot of the stuff like the Dead. I don't even think he wanted to do, but for some reason I did. I don't know why. It was the last tour where Jerry was around
Mm.
in the Boston Garden, and I'm not even a Deadhead. I'm not a huge fan. I mean, yeah, I like him enough, but it's definitely an acquired taste.
It's funny you say that because again, and I hope I don't alienate anybody, any deadheads or I, you're right about that, and it's very similar. We feel about Jimmy Buffett again. Not knocking these guys, it just it's just not something I can gravitate to or really yeah, there's some things and so forth, but there is something you've gotta have that connection, yeah, for sure, but especially Dead, and the jam band and that kind of music, yeah.
The Dead, yeah, that really needs like a lot of patience, a lot of patience, and
Is this
just
patience?
not
Do you mean
caring.
patience? You mean drugs, right?
That too, that does help. It's funny because I saw him, it was 90, 93, 94. So I was still pre drug use. I didn't
Mm,
know what it was all about.
okay.
I learned that night because the Boston Garden, it was the old Boston Garden, so the ventilation was piss poor. Me, my father, and my younger brother all got high as fuck and ended up passing out because of all the weed that was smoked in the garden. And we woke up like at the intermission. Some of the deadheads had flooded the toilets because they thought that was a good idea. So there's water coming out into the aisles. People are spinning around. You seen those hippies that do that weird spinning shit,
Yeah.
the dresses, and they just
It just
twirl?
floor yeah.
That was right there. That was enough to be like, you know what? This is a genre I don't know if I need to see live again.
You can check it off
And
the
I never
bucket,
did.
check it off the list, and that it's like, "Nah, okay,
Yeah.
we're done with that."
Been there, done that, brought back a t shirt. Thank you very much. You
Right.
know?
That's funny. Uh,
But yeah, he definitely was a big influence with a lot of that. And then that's what started. I think that by putting that seed of classic rock and roll, I think that's really what started the whole noticing drums and wanting to do that sort of thing. Like I remember when I was a kid, when I first started, like the first instrument I started on was a violin. Mistake. All right. I don't recommend any kid ever do that. If you're young and you think that you might, no, find something else. It's painful to practice for you and your family. The drums are only painful for those around you because they don't enjoy it and it's loud. But it's a great. It was the best thing. The T-shirt that I had when I was younger told my parents that I wasn't going to amount to anything as a drummer. So I ended up quitting and stopping for a little bit. And then I found through a couple of friends of mine in high school this other guy that taught drums. His name, I'm going to just share it. His name was Manny Wise. He was this old jazz drummer out of Boston. He was an English Jew, and he had this fantastical way. He was older. He had met some of these older drummers, Buddy Rich.
mhm.
He had worked with and actually gave lessons to the drummer. He claimed he for the drummer for Wings. But through him, I got to do a lot of neat stuff and learn a lot of different drum things. He was the first one to bring Buddy Rich into my life,
Oh, wow.
and and it was funny because he how he wanted to start it was the Muppet duel with Animal.
That's right, yeah.
He wanted to introduce me that way to show that he wasn't the prick that everybody made him out to be. Um, it didn't happen that way. It ended up where after a guilt trip or two for not practicing, he was like, "Oh, you think you can play? You think you can play?" And he was like, we would do record weeks when he thought you were doing a good job. So you'd play along to different types of records. And it wasn't even anything intermediate or easy. This bastard would put on like Bernard Purdy,
Oh.
freaking Gene Krupa, and then he'd be like, play along. Like, are you out of your mind? So it was Norwegian Wood, Buddy Rich Big Band doing
Mm.
Norwegian Wood. It was the first time I ever heard Buddy. And I was hooked with that. Absolutely hooked.
It's
Um,
it's, growing up and I like you said, they're classic rock, mostly influence, as you said, the bands your dad took you to see, but then that I mean, that's great to have been influenced is to open up the door to it's a much bigger thing than just, this section type of music, and right, and I think that's kinda what you see is the drummers that you probably knew that were probably popular at that time, they were all standing on the shoulders of these guys that, they're and he's being introducing to.
yeah, it's It was insane. He was the the greatest teacher that I could have had. I mean,
Mm.
like I said, he grew up in World War II, England. He was Jewish, like I said, and one of the times I'll never forget, like he told me this horrific story of him witnessing um, them torturing a Jewish guy in England because I didn't practice. Like he shared the story of this like absolute horrific fucking
Wow.
torture. Yeah, I mean, he guilted me better than my own grandmother would. He was like a pro at it, and he made me really appreciate the rudiments. Like to
Mm.
this day, I think my favorite is the paradiddle.
Mm.
I don't know why. I like breaking it up and playing it like it's a ride pattern on the ride and the snare. It's just so much fun.
Yeah,
But
the paradiddle is the one that it can actually be, yeah, I mean, you can play it and it actually sounds like something rather than a rudiment, right?
yeah, it sounds fun, and you can get that thing going pretty quick, and it looks impressive.
Right.
Especially
I
when you show it off to people that have no idea.
You're right, yeah, if you've done your practice, you can definitely and especially if you're playing with, on a full kit to actually move it around and so forth. There was
Yeah,
we had interviewed Dorothea Taylor, uh,
I watched that. The
actually,
grandmother, the
yeah,
drums.
thank you, and it was an interesting tip that, I went back and finally posted the video. The podcast had been out for a while, but finally got around to posting the video of that episode. Jeez, I'm glitching, I'm like, it's like the Matrix here on that video, and
It's like Max Headroom. I remember that.
and she had mentioned it was like a great little tip about the paradiddle is like, every time you say diddle, that's your double stroke, right? Versus, rather than trying to think left, right. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. I it's funny, I went back and listened, I'm like, man, sometimes, and I'm sure, we'll talk a little bit about the podcast is you get caught up and then until you go back and listen, you digest it a little bit afterwards about
Yeah,
what it was. So,
differently than you did in
right,
the moment.
right,
Because in the moment you're kind of like worried about everything
right.
going on,
So these were lessons
and
you were
then
taking outside of school, any type of school structure?
yep, he lived actually right around the corner from our high school. This little white house. He had a little white sign that said MY's drum lessons on it. And it was such a great experience. He was such a great friend. He actually I had moved to Seattle, Washington, later in my life for a few years, and my parents told me how much I missed him because, like I said, he was really a good friend. He was almost like a Yoda,
Mm,
you know. And he also painted and drew pictures. He did a lot of old like Charles Dickens characters,
mhm,
and he would sell them around Christmas time at the library in town. So my parents, unbeknownst to me, had commissioned him to paint a Norman Rockwell style painting of himself. Sitting at his he had uh, a a 70s Gretsch that sat he had two drum sets in the teaching room. One was this old natural finish Ludwig that was just beautiful. Old jazz kit, small sizes and everything. Man, what a sound. And he had a snare with that was made by Joe McSweeney from the Eames Drum Company. I don't know if
mm.
you're familiar with them,
No, yeah.
but this snare drum that he had, it was like 13 ply, and it was like a
Oh,
fucking
wow.
cannon. Like you could feel it in your anus. Like you'd hit it, and it like rocked you from mouth to ass. And you didn't even need to hit it hard at all. It was such a beautiful snare. But he had this other dark stained Gretsch kit, and he took a picture. He had taken a picture of himself and then painted the picture and sent it to me out in Seattle, with a note and a clipping about him in a news article, um, just to tell me. And he's like, "Your parents tell me that you miss your old drum teacher." And it was nice. It was really a good touching thing. And then when I
Right.
moved back, I ended up seeing him. He just passed away a year and a half ago.
Mm.
So he ended up being like 90 something.
Oh,
Crazy.
wow. Wow.
Yeah.
And like it's
One of his old students went to see him before he passed, and he actually was doing rudiments on his little walker. The guy had brought sticks for him to play, and he had his COVID mask on, and he was still doing the rudiments, and then he passed away shortly thereafter that video.
Mm,
It was nice to know. I wish I had a chance to see him one last time. Like Luke got to see Yoda before he just disappeared.
that's right.
So,
Yeah, no,
but
that's
yeah, he
sorry to
really
hear.
got me going in that,
Yeah.
and taking a good appreciation. But yeah, my dad dipping me in with like good rock and roll.
Mm,
That's the basis right there.
yep.
Um, my mom like that like the Monkees, Neil Sedaka, that kind of crap. I got nothing out of her musically.
Oh, that's I know it's so many different walks of life and different drummers and like we're saying, there it's a different style and um, and like I think I kind of mentioned there was very similar. More have always been growing up as a rock guy, living originally in the Northeast, and and then until never really got into country, it just there was never something there. But then until I went to Nashville for a drum workshop, it just kind of really opened
Mhm.
my eyes up about the fact that it's a and I wish I always understood it from this perspective was from early on was musician first, band second, right? Because if you really wanted to be you wanted to be your career, learn the instrument, learn really good. You may be in a band someday, but if you can play somewhere along the line, there's lots of drummers that are out there that are still filling in and they're keeping busy. They get to be, touring drummers or studio drummers, but they're still at least they're playing drums for a career. They may not be fancy rock
Mhm.
stars, in mansions and all that, but yeah, that's pretty cool.
Eh, Did you ever watch the there was a documentary about oh shit, now I'm not even gonna be able to remember who it was. Session musicians too. The Wrecking Crew. It was on for free on Hulu for the longest
Oh
time
no,
about the Wrecking Crew, all the guys that did like all the '60s sessions for the Beach Boys and the Wall of Sound for Phil Spector. All those musicians, they talked to all of them, and like I can't remember the drummer's name, but like he said like his best training that he had was when he was younger working in a strip club because back then they didn't have DJs because it was still they played with actual musicians and he'd get charts and he'd have to learn them wicked quick. And he said that was some of the best training site wise that I could have ever had.
right.
And I mean, yeah, definitely different worlds because I don't think of any strip clubs that have live bands anymore.
That, yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, we need to get those guys on. We got to listen to hear those stories. Those have got to be some interesting
Right.
stories.
Oh, they were fantastic, and they were like all the guys. They talked the bassist that did the bass line for these boots were made for walking.
Right.
The stories that they share, if you get a chance, I highly
Okay.
recommend
The
it. It's
wrecking. Okay.
just a wrecking crew.
All right. Yeah, I've
But
heard
yeah,
of it, but yeah, never hadn't seen the
the session drummers that you talk about, man, those are some of the legends. Steve Gadd,
Mm,
Vinny
wow.
Colaiuta. I mean, you can't really have a lot of the music that we have, like these solo artists that have impeccable drum lines behind them. You wouldn't have without studio drummers. And people think that that's not even like the pinnacle of it. I mean, it's not high paying, but you're everywhere.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's like I said, it's an opportunity to be, hey, what do you do? I'm a professional drummer, or a professional musician, and I don't know. I, I wish I wish I'd kind of had that understanding very early on, but it is what it is. But if I say if tell anybody, it's like just learn that instrument like it's no like it's anything else, and if you really truly want to be a musician and full time musician, because you can make a career out of it and not be, like an '80s band that blew up, imploded, and then now you're pumping gas is always, always the story or the joke is, right?
Or you're playing the town fair,
You're right. Hey, wait a minute, I'm those guys. I remember those guys. Yeah.
I used to work security at a fair local to me, and about every year America would play. You know how many times I've been through a desert on a horse with no name? Oh my god. I got to meet Frankie Avalon though. Was it Frankie Avalon? Yeah. Um, the beauty school dropout.
Yep. Hmm.
He's
Yep.
like 4 feet tall.
Yeah.
The guy is so short. I've had good fortune with that living on the East Coast and being able to run into people. Like one year I went to Ozfest and I got to sit and talk to John Tempesta.
Oh wow.
He was the drummer for White Zombie.
Yep.
And it's funny. It's like because I wasn't acting like some rabid dipshit. I talked shop,
Hmm.
and he was like, "Get this kid a chair." I sat, and he talked to me while he signed autographs.
Right. You weren't nerding
And
out the fact that he was like famous or right. You were just kind of he's another dude who
just a
plays the drums.
musician.
Yeah.
He just happens to be a little bit better at it than I am. He's getting paid. I'm not. And I've made mistakes with that too. When I was younger, Jay Giles was going to tour again, the Jay Giles band, and their drummer couldn't join them because of back issues. I had jokingly emailed Peter Wolf, and he asked me to audition, but because I was young and stupid, I opted to stick with a girl who ended up breaking up with me like 3 weeks later. Never
Oh.
sent it an audition tape, nothing.
Oh.
I don't think I would have gotten the gig, but it was still the fact that I should have at least tried.
You could have been a
You know,
contender.
I could have been. It's my Al Bundy story, my what if.
Only if I didn't
But
marry
yeah,
Peg. No,
right.
that's
I mean, drums have definitely been a big part
mm,
of a lot for me. It's always been something. I'll even sit to the annoyance of my girlfriend on YouTube and watch. I've watched like old clinics with John J.R. Robinson, um, the aforementioned Steve Gadd.
mhm.
I watched a thing, an old Burning for Buddy with Steve Gadd, Vinny Colaiuta, and who was that? That young jazz drummer that everybody
Jojo?
loved for a while.
Jojo?
No, it's a white kid with a mullet. What the hell was his name? I can't think of his name at all. But it was the three of them, and they did different solos off of each other. They traded fours
That's
basically.
that's great. Yeah, watching multiple
Dave Weckl, that's who it
Oh,
is.
oh, shit. Oh, that's insane then.
Yeah. I just sit and I get on these wormholes on drums on YouTube. It's ridiculous.
So now, if you as you've gone through and as I know you mentioned at the moment, you're not able to you've had to kind of put the put some things on hiatus, right?
Yeah, I live in
Yeah.
an apartment, and
Mm.
as loud as my neighbors are, I'm sure they wouldn't like the drums.
Now, have you
Although I don't
looked at
know if I care.
have you looked at like electronic kits or anything like that?
I have, but then I don't know if I really have enough space for it.
Mm.
And like I don't
Yeah.
know if it's something that I want to like set up, take down, set up, take down,
Right.
set up, take down, that sort of thing. So it's just been one of those things. I sit on the edge of my bed. I got a pair of Vic Firth and I just tap away. That
Mhm.
keeps me going now.
Yeah.
And the other thing I've been doing too is like looking for just old vintage drums that maybe I could fix up or something. I had a knack for that
Okay.
back with Manny. Um, he was a big vintage drum collector. He had a whole room full that had I known that he was going to retire and move, I would have tried to buy one of the kits that he had, but unbeknownst to me, it was just all gone. I was like, shit.
Right.
'Cause, there was a double bass scratch that he had that I would
Oh
have loved
god.
to
Uh,
have.
yeah, anything yeah, as you mentioned, if he was playing, in that photo or the picture, a '70s Gretsch, you know, yeah, it's Rogers,
he
all those kinda kits from, back in the day, Sling-a-ling-a-ling, or
he
yeah.
he had this amazing Premier
Oh,
bebop kit that the bass drum I almost dropped a nut trying to pick that thing up. It was just heavy. It was absurd. It ended up selling on Reverb. I had actually when I had tried to find him after he had fallen out because like he was old and I was trying to see what had happened to him.
right,
Someone had sold his kit on Reverb and some kid got it and I was like, damn. I remember carrying it to gigs for that guy. That was his other keen thing was convincing you that doing work for him was gonna help. It was like a Mr. Miyagi kind of deal.
That's right. That's
Like,
right.
hey, carry my drums to my gig. I'm like,
You got
okay.
you're just getting me having me do your chores.
Yep. And then come back when the show's over and pack them back into my car. Like, all right, that's fine with me.
So no, that that hey, that's great. Pete is still sticking. You know, you main up, and that's such. And again, like we talked about Dorothea, and there's so many people, other people that are online that are still doing the rudiments. I mean, you see her; she's posting stuff every day almost, and
Oh
you know,
yeah.
just practicing the rudiments. And you know, a couple of the other guests that we've had on the importance of the rudiments, and just keeping your you know your you know the sticking and to then to once you know to get back onto the kit. And that's exactly when I went to the drum dojo with Jim Riley. Uh,
Hmm.
you know, same thing. You know, we started off every morning. You know, just doing some warm up rudiments and kind of getting loose in certain things and the techniques and you know how where you know the hand positioning and so forth. And yeah, that's yeah, no, it'll come, man. It'll come back.
Oh yeah. It's one of those things like I now I'm waiting to like hopefully have a house or something, or I don't know, have money where I can just rent a spot,
Hey,
lock
you drop. Hey,
myself away from my kids.
yeah, let's plug the podcast right there. Like you said earlier, it was you had a podcast that dropped today. Again, if you're listening to this is January 17th. We're actually live streaming this on YouTube. But Pete and Chris, right, is your co-host. Other,
Yep.
yep. It just dropped an episode. It was about actually, you know, with a dad who came on. He's got a company or business that about you know saving money and being you know thrift, you know, mindful and not blowing all that and all these things. And actually,
Oh yeah.
I said I listened to it and it was actually some really good stuff. And I think as you mentioned, it was harder to break your spending habit than it was your smoking habit, right?
Yeah, it honestly it's true because every time you turn around there's something that you want.
Yep.
In the podcast I happen to use a special effects lightsaber, you know, those really expensive like $300 ones. And honestly, that isn't even about just spending it because I'm a nerd. I just want to like put that dominance upon my kids because they all have like the cheap shit lightsabers, and I figure I could school them and take them down.
This is how you,
That
this
was my whole thing. It was more of a defense mechanism than anything else.
So
Um,
you're asserting your dominance in the house there, right? Like an
yeah.
alpha.
Oh yeah, man. I am like I am the alpha dog. And the other thing too that is I've been looking to do is, and if I honestly had the money in hand, I wouldn't be afraid to drop it. But a 69 um Ludwig
Mm,
Sophronic, I would easily. There was actually a guy in Boston that had one that hadn't freaking been opened. It was still in the wrapper and everything. 68. I was like, you gotta be shitting me. But I didn't want to spend $1,000 on a snare. I could not justify it. I don't care who recorded with it.
right.
I just I
It
couldn't do it. But oh my god.
I get you. There's a lot of that, you know, whether it's and I have chained myself to two, as everyone says, you know, have a niche for your podcast, and I don't think I can get any more niche than you know drums and rums. But I'm like in
Yep.
that same boat when people buy certain bottles of rum that it's like you know 80, $100. It's like God, there's so much out there. I'm like, there's so many bottles and so little money, and you know, same thing you can go for drums. There's just so much, you know, out there that it's you know, as
I I'll disappoint you a little bit. My taste in rum is dog crap.
that,
Like Parrot Bay.
sorry,
Uh
you might. I know there's a few.
Parrot Bay and Cove.
I think there's a few folks in the chat here listening, so you might get chastised a little bit. But this is an opportunity to educate. You know, again, to open you up to some new things. If you are a coconut rum guy, there's some really good stuff that's not Parrot Bay or Malibu, and it is coconut rum.
Yeah, that's true. And you know, and mixing it with a soda is
Hmm.
like the worst thing. I'm like a diabetic nightmare
Oh
with
yeah.
like ingesting that. Like just all that sugar.
Yep.
Oh. I've actually moved on to better things. I'm more of an Irish whiskey guy now.
Okay.
So I know that that's not rum, and I'm sorry. My parents
Okay.
love rum. They love it so much that they named their dog Morgan.
Oh, there you go.
So
Excellent.
yeah, yeah. It
So,
was actually like I think my mom and like when menopause hit, she like turned to drinking. and she totally turned into a different person, and that was for the better. So
Okay.
there we go.
There you go. All right. So,
Uh,
Pete, so let's talk about a little bit about the the podcast here. Let's kind of, for the listeners, like I said, we connected as we mentioned through the Buzzsprout Facebook group. And Buzzsprout, if you don't know,
yep.
is our hosting company, or is a podcast hosting company, and I think they've been really good. I've been with them since 2020, and they got a really good community there on Facebook. People ask a lot of questions, and it's really responsive. And like we said earlier, we don't remember exactly how, but it's not how you get on the commenting and people start piling on, and that's how Pete and I had connected.
I saw drums and I was like, ooh.
Oh,
Because I honestly, like I said, I mean, it makes up a lot of my day. Like
mhm,
you think of the different music, and it just the way that it drives you,
right,
you know. And I could cite all the usual, Bonham and Ringo Starr,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
and it's funny. It's like I said, like going to those concerts when I was younger. Neil Peart, like flashy bastard, makes you want to be a drummer. But then you also like, I can't do that. And then you go and see the Rolling Stones, and you see somebody like Charlie Watts, and you're like, that, that I can do.
right, yeah. Neil wants
And
you makes you either really want to work hard or quit. Yeah,
yeah,
Charlie is like, that
but
guy's having fun up there. He makes it look so effortless, and he's just,
and the pocket and the groove,
mhm,
it's like that style of parenting. Like
right,
it's like there's those people on Facebook that are all these hacks and everything, and I'm the super parent. They're the Neil Peart parent.
yeah,
They're really not. They're not having any fun with it. They're like at home drinking, drugging probably later on in the day.
yeah.
They're reaching for their mother's little helper.
Ah,
We
there
go
you
back
go.
to the
Oh,
Stones
look
for
at that,
that
look at
one.
that
I'm
reference.
more like the Charlie Watts. I sit in the pocket, I just like I let it come at me and I handle it as it goes.
All right, so then I'm going to ask you then this question that always comes up, and I'm sure you know always the big old debate about Ringo. Then, so why does Ringo get shit for not being very underrated, or people shit on Ringo, but yet nobody ever shits on Charlie Watts? And he's very simple. Again, Charlie just played what needed to be played, played the pocket, didn't need to be flashy. You got two guys that are flashy up front, and the Beatles were, I mean, that's hard to overshadow. Do they need another fourth guy to be super flashy in that band, or out there? No, I don't think so. But I mean, yeah, why does Charlie not get the same flack that Ringo gets?
Honestly, I think it's because of the different styles of music.
Mm,
The Stones, while I appreciate them fully, and honestly, they were a better band with Brian Jones. That's
mm.
just my opinion. Uh, but
Ooh,
as far as the two different bands, they were two different styles. And honestly, the Beatles had all of that spotlight. Nobody really paid a lot of attention or as much of attention to the Stones.
mhm,
He and Charlie played exactly what needed to be played, while Ringo came up with different and creative ways of making a beat for a song. People looked at it as a childish way because he did play simple, straight things, but no one ever took to account the fact that he's a left-handed guy
mhm.
playing a right-handed
Yep,
kit.
yep.
He can't go around the drums. There's just and there is beauty in simplicity. There is beauty in like that whole bravado drumming that like would be behind like a Celine Dion or something like that. I don't know why people opted to make fun of Ringo more than Watts.
Mm,
Truthfully, I mean, it might have just been his persona too. I mean, you watch those Beatle movies, and he is a bit of a goofy bastard,
yeah,
so that
true.
might have played
Yeah,
into it too.
that's
But
true.
he was a genius.
Yeah.
Him and Watts both. I mean, you sit back and you listen, and just keeping the time. That is what you're really there for. You don't have to be a flash. You don't have to be anything special, just a solid backbeat. You get
Mm.
a good bassist along with you.
Oh,
Like, look at Larry Mullen Jr. and Adam Clayton.
oh,
Nothing
yeah.
fucking flashy going on there at
No,
all.
yeah,
And no one talks about them, but
nope.
they keep the pockets so Bono can talk about whatever the hell it is he talks about. And and don't get me wrong, I've seen U2 so many times live,
Right.
and I actually even went to London and not London, to Dublin and Ireland and stuff looking to see, but never ran into any
Mm,
of them. But yeah, I mean,
yeah,
there is such great beauty and simplicity, especially with drum parts.
right. Yeah, yeah,
You know.
as I say, keep it simple, stupid, right? And,
Yep.
there's nothing more. Yeah, unless you're
I mean, you
doing
can
some for
class up
progressive.
a simple 2/4 beat with some ghost notes, some accents. I
Yep.
mean, you can make it your own.
That's why
And every drummer sounds. Every drummer has their own sound.
right.
Like you can put something on, and I'm gonna know that it's a Dave Grohl. I'm gonna know for sure that that's John Bonham. You know, I know that that's Jeff Porcaro.
Mhm.
Can't fool me. I mean, it's like everyone has their own unique sound, and that's the best thing that you can do is just stick with what's true to you. Just don't try to be the next Travis Barker or Neil
Yeah.
Peart. Be you.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean,
Rock that pocket, and you know that's the best thing that you can do. Just keep time and be solid.
there you go. Keep time and be solid. There we go. That's gonna be the name of the episode. Keep time and be solid.
It's true
Yeah.
though. I mean,
Yeah.
that's like, and it's so true with everything. You don't need to be flashy. You don't need to be, that super parent. You don't need to be anything more than just you, and you only need to exceed your own expectations.
Right.
Anybody listening or making comments? They writing angry things.
No, no, they're hanging in there. We get, a few folks in there that got a couple that said uh listening to the conversation there
I
about
should.
your music teacher and saying, it was a really interesting story, talking about the music teacher and kind of go through that, when you're learning so it's a little quiet but not a big deal. So any shows coming up here that you're interested in seeing here in 2023?
Honestly, no.
Because it costs a lot of
uh,
money to see shows now.
it does. Honestly, the one thing that I would hands down love to see is that whole uh what do they call those things? The avatars of ABBA. I would go and see that at the O2
Hmm.
Arena.
Hmm.
I would totally check that out. I heard it's amazing.
Interesting.
Um, I've seen all the bands that I want to see. I've seen the Foo Fighters a few times. Um, seen Radiohead. I mean, all the bands that I could think that the only ones that I haven't seen are the ones that are all no longer.
Right.
I wish I could have seen Hendrix or the Who when it was the
The
Who,
original.
not
Right.
just
Yep.
not just Pete Townsend and Roger Daltrey.
Yeah. And a cast of different folks that fill in. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
I'm the same, very similar. I've kind of struggled to see some bands that I never got a chance to see when, obviously said we talked about we're the same age, back in the 80s or so forth is I, nowadays I don't know if I can justify the money and also have a certain snapshot memory about the music that remember it as. And again, that's always, as we know, it's unfair because whenever you go see live music, it never is going to sound like what it's the CD or the tape. And,
Yep.
live is got a whole totally different thing and so on and so forth. So it is tough from from that aspect. But two, then when you've got musicians that they just, songs are played down a step and they can't hit some of those things anymore. And again, they've gotten older and I think it's one of those when you are starting off as a musician and you want to play music and you want to have original music, you think of it.
Yep.
Never anybody ever thinks about the 40 years down the road if you're still doing this, right? You hope you're still doing
Yeah.
this 40 years from now, but
I was saying that to somebody the other day about relevance.
mm,
Like at this point, what the hell can Bono tell me that I don't already know that this guy can just watch and see from his palatial estate in Ireland and all of his presidential friends and stuff like that. He's like totally lost touch. He is no longer that guy from Boy or The Unforgettable Fire. He is not that hungry person. Oh, it was my dad because he was bitching that they take too long to put out albums. And then they talked that they just said that they were going to release an album of just reworked old songs. I'm like, wow, you guys are like the Rolling Stones. Those guys honestly have more freaking greatest hits albums than I could care to count. The Rolling Stones, have you ever looked at their back catalog? They just sell the same shit to you all the time. And they add one or two new songs
Yeah, well,
and everyone's happy because they know you're going to pay through the teeth to get to see them
the
live.
same one. And I wonder
Yeah,
though,
it's
but I mean,
like
with
Paul
stream
McCartney.
right, but streaming now, I don't know if that's changed a little bit because obviously you don't, well, sometimes you can't get a single song unless you buy the whole album, even when you're downloading an Apple or something.
True.
So, but yeah,
I have
Paul
Apple
McCartney.
Music. I've had a pretty decent run with
Mm,
getting the songs that I want to hear when I want to,
yeah.
thankfully. But yeah, they really. If they were touring, I would go see OK Go.
Mm.
They would be the one band that I'd like to see because of their visuals, along with their.
Oh, all right. We got a little bit of something. Let's see here. What do we got going on? All right, we're gonna switch over back here. I'm gonna switch back here while we go ahead and we'll make a little edit here on the audio version of the podcast here. And but yeah, so I know as Pete was talking about was the various uh album releases and I don't know, do you those that are listening, do you find that kind of annoying, new music or quasi new music in a band that you have? Um all right, so he's just going through computers rebooting. Yeah, so I think that's some interesting things that Pete's talking about there is music, music that's been established, but yet recycling some of the same stuff just to put one single new release out, and I know a lot of bands do that actually a lot of times regarding that. And do you feel like you're getting your money's worth? Do you feel like it's I guess if you're a fan, you buy a new greatest hits, but yet you'll still spend the money on it or something. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I'm just curious about that though. So, all right. So I think Pete's back.
Sorry about that.
So, all right, there he goes.
Everything went black.
So, nowhere. I was just stalling there. I was just trying to stretch out, right? That talking about there. How many greatest albums, greatest hits, tapes that do you have for any particular one band, right? And I know there's a lot of bands go through that, and like you said, just to get that one new song that which is I don't know. It's
Stones are notorious for
I
it.
I get it. I don't know if it's to fulfill a record, contract number of things they got to put out, or I don't know. I'd hope it's not
Yeah.
necessarily that it's a money grab. Maybe some are. I don't know. I mean, look, it's all a business,
So
really. But
I know you're the host, but I'm going to ask you a question. Have you ever gone to see like one of your favorite bands or a band and they play a song that you like, but they don't play it the same way? And you're like, what the hell happened? Like they try to change it differently and you're like, what? What?
I really would have to think about that. That's a good question. I'm sure somewhere along the line we I have experienced that. I'm trying to think, and hmm, that's a good one. I'll have to think about that. Is But you're right, because if you go in and you're paying your money, this is the tricky part about being a fan. Being a musician, having fans, being your own thing and your own creativity, but yet your fans are paying money for it. So like you said, how many times you going to hear what was the song you referenced at the state fair? American
Oh,
Woman,
yeah,
or
West with no name.
yeah, the horse with no name, right?
Because I've been through the
Yeah.
desert.
So, but people that come to the concert and spent their money, they want to. That's the song they want to hear. You might be sick and tired of hearing it, but you know what? Again, that's what your fans want, and I get it. It's tough. It's a tough thing, and uh, the artist thing is
It's
so forth. But yeah, I'd have to try to think about that one. If it was so changed up that I wasn't happy about it. I'll have to think about that one.
It's yeah, I have just one glaring one. I went and saw Modest Mouse, and they changed one of the songs to the point where it was just like, that's it, I'm done.
Hmm.
It was so terrible. And I've seen some epic concerts too. Like I saw Weezer on Lansdowne Street in Massachusetts, which is right, well, in Boston, I should say. It's right behind Fenway Park. It was cold. It was this old radio station that's no longer there. It was a college radio, FNX, and they
Hmm.
had the new music pole, and they shut down the entire street because there was bars and clubs that lined one side, and baseball park was on the other. And then they had live acts in the street,
Hmm.
and Weezer played in the street, and they swung the whole almost the whole first half of the Blue album. So instead of playing it straight, it was beautiful. And I just remember like seeing Rivers Cuomo. I didn't realize that he was only like 5 feet tall, and he had this gigantic fur coat. He looked like a little miniature Wookiee. He was like too tall to be an Ewok, but too short to be a Wookiee. You know what I mean? He was like in between. So it's weird. Those are my favorite things, like those memories that I have. Like I remember going to see a concert with my dad. I believe it was the Stones. And the people behind us, no, it was you too. People behind us got wicked drunk, and like one of the girls behind me kept dancing and hitting me, and she kept apologizing. And I remember saying to my dad, I'm like, why do people enjoy going and getting so screwed up that they're not going to remember the concert? And then I remember the first time that I went and I got so screwed up, and I was like, oh, I get it.
Oh,
Oh, this all makes sense.
okay.
But yeah, when it's funny. It's like
Wait,
I
wait, wait,
remember
wait,
like
wait, wait, wait,
those.
wait. Wait, hold on, I'm going to interrupt you because again, I know you guys made a reference of that on the podcast today. It was the latest episode was about when you say, "Don't worry, you'll understand when you get older."
Yeah, it's those movies. It's those. Yeah,
That's exactly it.
the old jokes in the Muppet movies. You
Yeah,
laugh, and the kids are like, "Why? What's so funny?"
you'll see,
Like,
son.
15 to 20 years, boy.
Right. So, all right, Pete. So, are you ready for the rapid fire? Right, you know what this is all about, right?
No, what's this? Rapid fire?
Oh, the rapid fire. Okay, well, here we go. This is the rapid fire in 4 beats or less. So here we go. Here's our segment. Fabulous
Oh,
prizes that you will win if you get it right. Your answers to see what your answers
I
are.
just
So this
I
is
just
our
like
this is our
trivia.
rapid fire here in 4 beats or less. Obviously for the drummers, it's called in 4 beats or less. And again, our rum guests have it for their version called in 4 sips or less. But you are identify as yourself as a drummer. So these are things at first that come to mind to overthink it. You know, again, this is in 4 beats or less. Some people ask what is the tempo, and it's whatever tempo it is. But again, in 4 beats or less, don't overthink it here. So you ready?
Ready?
All right. So in 4 beats or less, question number one: who is on your Mount Rushmore of drummers?
Pert, Rich, Watts, and Manny Wise.
Oh, hey, there you go. All right. All right. Nod to the teacher. All right. Excellent. Okay.
Not
Very good.
without him, man.
Yeah, that's right. It's for you. That's where it all started. So yeah. All right. Very cool. All right. So in 4 beats or in four, see, I've got it wrong here. So man, who types this stuff up here? So who types this stuff up here? Yeah, this is where we need to start monetizing this podcast here so we can start putting things in there. So in 4 beats or less, will Brady come back to New England or finish out his career? Okay, the Bucks just finished. They lost last night to they lost last night to Dallas. It was a rough game for Brady, but now the is he going to finish out his career in New England? I know you're a Pats
No,
guy. Nope. Okay.
I'm not. I'm not a Pats guy at all. I'm actually
Oh.
a baseball guy, and I actually just ditched the Red Sox for the Savannah Bananas. Because at least I'll get my money's worth out of those guys.
So
Yeah, no, I don't care if Brady comes back. I don't necessarily want him to. I enjoyed the run. I enjoyed the fact that a lot of people hated us because they ain't us. But the time is done. He needs to. He really does need to kind of retire.
just you think he
I think he should have stayed out last season because now he. I mean, even though he's had a decent season number wise,
mm,
the win loss record looks like shit.
yeah.
I'd rather go out on top, and then go out looking like Peyton Manning. I
Yeah.
don't know, man.
No, it's gonna be tough for him to really justify. Right? He should have hung it up. Right? One stopped it.
And he
One left.
already
Yeah.
lost the wife. Like, what the hell else is he going to lose now?
I don't
His
know, man.
mind?
Well, I mean, he's got a big contract waiting for him to go into the booth. So,
You know what I think he should do is David Ortiz already went and started up a marijuana company. He's selling joints all over Massachusetts. Maybe Poppy and Brady get together,
well, I
throw in a
look,
little, I don't know.
look. I didn't say what he was coming back to finish his career out in New England. Right?
He sold the house though.
Eh,
He's not coming back. He hated the cold.
That's a big part.
Fun
People
story.
forget.
I
Yeah.
almost got run over by Drew Bledsoe. If we're
Oh,
going to talk about the Patriots.
yeah. Hey, that makes you almost famous.
Yeah, no, I was going to a Rolling Stones concert at Foxborough, and they were leaving practice, and his big Ford Expedition, black, almost clipped me.
Oh, shit.
My dad's like, "Did you know who that was?" And I'm like, I waved, and I'm like, "Thank you."
Thank you for almost hitting me.
Uh,
I will remember this
yeah,
forever.
I
All right.
will.
There's a near brushes with yes, famous people. Near brushes of death with because of famous people. All right, informed pizza or less. All right, so I know, like we said, we talked about you are a co-host on the podcast, Dad's Unfiltered here, and this is here's one for you here. So, what is the toughest thing about being a dad?
The toughest thing about being a dad is it's really just the adapting to the different scenarios. Nothing ever is the same. Even when you think that you're going to encounter it, like, because you have like multiple kids, you're like, oh, well, this happened, so I'm going to have this. This is going to happen again. Nope, it's always going to be different.
Hmm.
The first one might be a little bit more like mild, reserved. The second one could be like a little fucked up. I mean, it's always you always run into that. Like my brother has three kids, each one different personality. I have two. My youngest one is he's autistic, so there's definitely a lot
Mm.
that goes into that. Like right now, I had to bribe him with some peanut butter, a shower, and his iPad just to get quiet time for doing this.
Oh,
So, and then my older one is 17, moody, working on his driver's license. Everything that I do is wrong.
mm,
So,
that sounds
he doesn't
familiar.
want to hear. He gets mad if things don't go his way.
Hmm.
Oh, it is miserable.
Yeah. I try to explain to my boys, I said, ask me why I'm telling you this, or ask me, it's like, I says, because I've been there. I was this, young, stupid boy, these things. I'm like, you can ask your mom all you want about certain things, but there's certain things she'll say, you tell them, it's like, I don't know, go ask your dad, because actually, I think
Yep.
that's actually the name of another podcast, I think. But, it's the same thing. Like, he's at least gone through it, try to explain to you. But yeah, my boys are definitely,
How old are yours?
16 and 17, and my oldest
Oh,
has
all
been
right. So,
yeah.
have you started the driving crap yet?
Yeah, my oldest is, because here in Florida at 16 you can drive, so I've got about a
All right.
year and a half. I'm definitely poor because I have 2 teenage boys driving, and, so yeah, this is why the podcast needs, Patreon. Check out patreon.com/drums and rums. You could send, support the podcast, support
So, how was your first go around with the driving? Like, let's be honest. Was it like the first time that you took your first child out driving?
it was a bit, it took time. It was, again,
Yeah.
I have to work on my patience as well. I can definitely see where my children inherit it, and again, just remember it's, it can kind of get scary. I think kids today, though, I talk to other people that are, kids about roughly the same age. Um, And they say, yeah, a lot of kids today don't have really much of an interest in driving, um,
Nope.
because, they can access and things and see people and their friends and whatnot. And they don't have to go over to another house to go hang out or, whether it's because of the electronic stuff and the digital age, etc. But,
Yep.
he's the oldest one is working, he's got a part-time job, and, he's doing so he's, gotten better, he's still trying to get him, to get out on the highway because again, at a higher speed, it's can be a little bit scary, especially here in South Florida, which
Right.
is insane. The
Yeah,
little
I heard
guy
that people drive like animals down there.
uh, well, it's because we get a lot of different people from all over that have different driving styles. So
Yep.
folks that are up from the Northeast, they're coming down here drive, and then they don't are not familiar with driving in the rain even. And then of course you got people driving in the left hand lane and driving. That's a whole again. We got a whole craziness of. And then people from other countries that come up, that are in South Florida, they drive differently, and a lot of folks that come from Haiti and different places, So again, we got a very mixed bag of driver types. So, but at least I always tell them, I says, look,
Yeah.
I, s- look, I'm paying for your license. I said, so you're gonna do some errands for me. I said, you're gonna drive here, go here, and I sent our son yesterday. I said, all right, why don't you go do a lunch run? I says, this is why I'm paying for your car insurance. You're gonna do if I'm gonna pay for all this, you're gonna.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it definitely,
That was like my designation was you have to take your grandmother shopping.
yeah,
Anytime she calls and asks, you're the one taking her.
there
Like,
you
all right,
go.
that's fine.
Yeah. So hey, I tell
It's
you got to get out and do it. At the that's just it. I mean, it's
yeah.
what was an analogy yesterday we used was I asked him about the bird, and this is why does the mama bird throw the bird out of the nest, so you just start flapping those wings, right? Then they're like, well, didn't you ever
That's
see
right.
that
Yeah.
movie? Didn't you see the movie Rio? I'm like, no. So they're trying to make some reference that the bird fell and because he couldn't fly. I don't know. So it was like, all right, well, that's not a good dad analogy that I just blew. So, but anyway,
Rio sucked
yeah,
anyway. Don't worry about that. But I took my son out for his first time the other day, and he was like, "Well, how did I do?" I'm like, "Pretty good. You got to watch the speed limit."
Mm.
He goes, "Oh, was I going too fast?" I go, "No, you actually have to try to get to the speed limit." It was like driving with with Hooks from Police Academy,
Oh, my,
where they show her doing the road
that's
test
right.
and
Yeah,
singing along,
just
driving all slow. And yeah, it was weird. There was like a couple of turns like that he took really fast, and it's like you could feel like being kind of pulled out of the seat. And then others, it's like I swear to God, he wanted me to get out and push the car around the turn. It was just
yeah.
like one of those things. And but it's one of those. He's gonna crawl before he can walk.
Right. Right, you're right, you've just gotta do it. That's it, and yeah, it can be scary, but, that's the only way you learn, right, is by doing more of it, and, like we talked like drumming, right? You gotta do more, you gotta practice more, you gotta more time behind the
Yep.
seat to get better at it and experience certain things. And you're right. The turning, that was always one of us. It's like you don't have to stop if you don't have a stop sign. You can turn as long as you're got an adequate speed to control the car as long as you're clear and you're turning and all that. So I it can
Yeah.
like I said we were just came
Oncoming cars too. He would like end up in neighbors' yards. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, just keep going. They're gonna pass you. Like, you
yeah
don't have to avoid them.
yeah
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm like, Jesus
yeah.
Christ.
It's like wait a minute. Did all these years of playing Mario Kart not teach you anything?
I know, right? It just took me back to when he was like a kid when I first got him a Nintendo. When I like he was probably wasn't age appropriate, and like he would just drive and like hit the wall. I'm doing it, Dad. I'm doing it, and his car would just be hitting the wall.
Grinding.
And, like
Yeah.
go wrong way would flash across the screen. I'm like, yeah, you're doing it all right, buddy.
You're not getting your license.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Never.
All right, Pete, here we go with the
Do
last
we have
question.
another?
Oh, you want to get the last
I was just
question?
gonna say, do we have another question?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
got this is the last one. All right, last question here. It's in 4 beats or less. All right. Drumming, podcasting, or being a dad is a tough one.
Ooh.
I think you're getting set up here.
No, it would be being a dad.
There you go. All right. Nice. All right. Give you that applause there.
They drive me nuts, but yeah, it would be being a
Excellent.
dad, and then podcast,
Yeah.
and then probably drumming.
Nice.
Just
So
because I do like to entertain and make people laugh.
yeah. So all right. Well, welcome to the podcast. You're a part of the where's the camera there? You're a part of the alum now here. You're part of the Drums and Rums alum here. with all the other you and, people like Dorothea there, so the Backbeats Meets Spirits there, so check that out there. We'll get your address
Nice.
there and mail it out there. So, yeah. So it's a little something there about, the guests to come on, a little bit of branding, kinda again, thanks and kind of this community of a collective community I've realized I've collected along the way over the last, almost 3 years now doing this and, again, different people, and we've collabed on other stuff with some of the other past guests as well. Other Buzzsprout podcasts and hosts as well too. We've done some follow up and so forth. But yeah, so congrats and welcome to the alum there.
Yay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I
Yeah.
enjoyed it. I would definitely come back and talk music anytime, man.
Y-
I mean, we didn't even talk about Stuart Copeland. I
Oh,
mean,
I
there are
know.
so many,
There's I
so many drummers.
there's I there yeah I think we've only scratched the surface. In yeah, you're right. There's so I know that's what I would love to. I got to try to figure out how to do it like a drummer roundtable and just invite back all the drummers and
I was
just
just
kinda,
thinking that.
you know, there was like, he didn't join the first year I was in the podcast, end of 2020. I done like a happy hour hang with some of the guests. I invited everybody back on and, uh, it was like a YouTube or, Facebook, YouTube, social media drummer, Dave Bloom. I don't know if you follow David Bloom. And,
I'll check him out though.
he was one of them. Like, I'd been watching for a while, and I had him on, and it was like, "Man, this is kinda," the other people that I, knew had, friends of mine are like, "Man, that's actually, somebody," and then, had Jared from Drumeo was on too, and, so he's been pretty cool. I'm like, so it's been a pretty cool community. I know a lot of people don't get it with, the drums and rums part, and, it's like, "Look, we could talk about drums, we could talk about rums, we could talk about both things or something in between as long as there's a reference to it, right?"
Well, technically, I mean, there's a connection there. There's like a Caribbean connection. You could even throw in Jamaica, because that's like a rum area, drummy, steel
Mhm.
drum kind of thing. I don't know. I'm just
Yeah, no,
grasping at straws here.
you're right, you're right there. There's some things, my problem is I have so many things rattling around and it's only myself. I mean, I guess I'm a little jealous of, podcasts that have, co-hosts and, I really don't have one,
Oh man, yeah,
as a
it's a great thing. Although you've listened to mine, Chris tends to not shut up, and he'll like repeat himself a few times. I love him, but he's got to somehow figure out to get to a point a little quicker.
All right. So Chris, if you're listening to this, Pete loves you.
I hope he's listening, the bastard. I sent the link to him like 4 times. He better be.
Or he's gonna have to wait. He's gonna have to go watch the replay or listen to it when the audio podcast drops there.
Right.
So yeah,
I'll
so
we'll I'll mark the times that I insult him. Like
keep track
scroll to
of it.
210.
So yeah, so as part of the episode there, I know there's I know we could definitely yeah, we'll definitely it's definitely not an issue you have on, and we've had a lot of guests come on and as past guests to definitely talk more stuff. I've got a friend here that's who's been a co-host before, has been a guest a couple times. Actually, the Renee was I'm talking about Renee Rivera, and he was the he helped me co-host with the episode with Dorothea. So so definitely, that's something that maybe I gotta come on and help do this drum roundtable kind of thing would be kind of pretty cool. So Pete, so in closing, so what do you got? What do you want to plug? Here's your shameless plug section here. What do you want people to know and learn more about? They're listening to this episode.
I'm gonna plug my podcast, clearly. Dads Unfiltered. We actually even have a Facebook group too. We're trying to build a community, safe place for dads to talk, hang out, meet people. We get some guys from Australia, some guys from England. It's a good time, and that's just Dads Unfiltered at Facebook. You'll see our little logo. It's purple and green. It actually was, I think, a thumbnail for this.
Hmm.
Um, and I'll even plug Chris's TikTok at Dadding Daily. It's at Dadding_Daily. He's um, a life coach. He does work with guys, teaching about emotions and all that sort of stuff. I'm more of the humor side of it. I've been there, done that, brought back the T-shirt.
Mm.
He tries to be the more clinical type aspect of the podcast.
Mm.
You got the live wire this time. I tell you what.
So is like what are they like in a comedy act, right? It's the straight man and the punch or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah, the comic
Laurel and Hattie, straight
they
man, and yeah, the goofball.
excellent there. I'm going over there and hitting the join button now. All right. Let's see. Let's see if I get let's see if I get accepted as a group here. So, oh, I got to answer some questions. So, all right, we'll come back to
Oh
the
yeah,
questions here. So, I definitely, yeah, definitely, I appreciate you taking, accepting the invite to come on and talking. Definitely, I love the story there about how it started out and your story about your teacher there. It seemed like a really great guy. And we'll definitely we need to keep in touch and go. Like I said, we'll do some other stuff. And if there's any time if you ever want me to come on, and yeah, more than welcome to come on.
definitely.
I think it's a great way for podcasts, and it's just like we talked about in the Buzzsprout Facebook group. A lot of guests try to help go cross platforms, cross groups, and to guest on other podcasts that have similar uh, content, I guess. And I think it's a great way to kind of grow audiences by reaching out to other groups there. So definitely, yeah. Let me know if
Definitely.
you're anything. So all right, so I'd like to thank Pete for coming on the podcast and talking about drums and podcasting and being a dad. And so check out Dads Unfiltered there on the Facebook group. Check out their podcast, available everywhere you listen to. Like I said, they just had a new episode drop about, I think it was really interesting about, money management and so forth. Episode that just recently dropped. And yeah, because you've been doing the podcast since 2022, right? Summer of 2022?
Yeah, 7 months, I think,
Yeah.
just
All right.
about.
Good.
Yep.
It's tough.
It's a
I
good
know,
time.
man. It was at episode 19, I think, right?
Yeah, we're at
Yeah.
19 now. The
Right.
least watched, listened to one was about Obi-Wan Kenobi. We figured that one would go well. Nobody gave a shit.
Oh.
Um, we figured, Star Wars, everyone's watching it now. Disney Plus is like
Mm-hmm.
selling their memberships with just Star Wars. Yeah, no one really listened to it. And it's funny because it was like the one episode that I had with the most technical difficulties, and then I edited it while I was on a road trip vacation with my girlfriend down in Georgia. So I spent some time in my oddly expensive hotel room that I did not know would cost as much as it did. I thought I booked for more nights than I did, and then I realized I'm like, holy crap. So yeah, I ended up editing the podcast while on vacation.
Oh.
My girlfriend went and did other things. Yeah, and then only like 9 people listened to it.
Hey, stick with it. It's tough. I mean, I hear you, and that's sometimes the challenges of being a podcaster and really putting the effort into it, right? But you want to put a good product out there. And yeah, this is one of the banes of being a podcaster is editing audio and all these things. And, yeah, I was there very early on a lot of that stuff, stressed over a lot of stuff. And,
Yeah.
and even tonight,
As we go, we've learned just to just let it go and just do the best you can.
yeah, yeah. I mean, if again, knock yourself out and, and you have fun with it, right? So,
Exactly.
yep. So, all right. So, check out the Drums and Rum podcast. Give it a like, follow, and lots of other great episodes that are out there. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram. Subscribe to this YouTube channel and page. Don't forget to give us a 5-star rating over there on Apple Podcasts. Leave us a review. Those ratings, folks, they really do matter because that's what people do look at is the ratings, the reviews. Advertisers look at those things, and I'm not just saying it again. I'm here talking with another podcaster, and he can tell you the same thing. Exactly, it is important to actually go and actually give ratings, whether you like it or not. I mean, it's still a rating, right? You got to give us feedback. If you like it or don't like it or something about it, just don't be quiet. Let us know if it's
Yeah, let
something
us
cool.
know.
How do we improve, right? So check out the website, drumsandrums.com. And again, I want to thank Pete for coming on there. Thank you all. Have a great day. This is where the backbeats meets the spirits. Thanks all.